Today, because of the massive amount of available games, we typically rely on the hearsay of others to help us in deciding whenever a game is applicable to our interests. Many of the games recommended today are typically the safest of choices, categorized within the safer genres that we grew up with. This, however, can result in us owning too many similar games sitting in the backlogs. In today's video, I'll be recommending 5 games that I consider as palate cleansers for those fatigued of the same old routine. These games, though they may not be necessarily the best games of their genre, will be interesting or unique in their own way. My goal is to perhaps introduce a new interest in those looking for something new in their library. Introducing the first game by developer Fail Better Games is Sunless Skies. Sunless Skies is an explorative narrative game that, unlike other games which uses its narrative to introduce its gameplay, does the reverse. Its gameplay, the combat, mercantile, and roguelite mechanics, exists to introduce you to its dense writing, conveying a strange but familiar world to the player to discover and explore. At the beginning of your game, you are given the choice of setting a main goal for yourself, allowing you to choose your primary objective in life. Then, you are let loose into the world to explore as you see fit. Through the first few initial locations, you are subjected to quests that serve as an introduction to different types of requests that you'll be either tasked to do, or you do of your own volition. Perhaps you'll take on quests that ask you to headhunt enemies. You could purchase goods for cheap from one island to sell for a profit in another. Or you could take on requests that take you to explore further out beyond the skies. All of this gains you experience, and through level ups, you pick stats that improve both your abilities during your travel and also improve your dice roll odds during narrative sections. And through said narrative is where the game truly shines, where often through its abstract descriptions you gain an understanding of the mechanics of the world. Often, some mildly mundane island hides within itself something sinister that you can work towards uncovering, causing effects, for better or for worse, towards the world depending on your results. Similarities can be made to Disco Elysium, where exploration is the overall gameplay and within the narrative is the overall focus. But while Disco Elysium is primarily a point-and-click adventure that builds its conclusion based on the results of your singular adventure, Sunless Skies allows you to fail, with player deaths that build towards a roguelike run continuation, where you bring your benefits from previous lives into your current run. Whenever you're looking for another narrative game with dense, abstract writing, like Disco Elysium, or you're perhaps looking to get into something more text-heavy but wanted to retain some interesting gameplay, then Sunless Skies would be worth a try. Next up for my second recommendation by developer Team Wibby is Phantom Abyss, currently in early access as of recording. Phantom Abyss is a platforming adventure wrapped within its procedurally generated temples and its risk of permanent death. After a tutorial, you're dropped into a generated temple, appropriately difficult for your adventure rank, which is raised by clearing temples. The temples themselves are filled with platforming sections, traps, and some adversaries for you to get past on your way to your goal, the shiny relic. Within these temples are the ghosts, or phantoms, of the other players that have attempted the same temple. Through them, assuming they still live at the part of your run, you can get a preview of their attempts at circumventing the traps and possible shortcuts, and if they fail, they conveniently disable the trap that they've fallen into. After sections of the run, an upgrade point becomes available for you to spend currency found inside chests, and other destructibles scattered within the temple, acting as an incentive to explore a little within the rooms at risk of encountering additional traps. Up your odds by unlocking traversal abilities, or recover from your mistakes by purchasing additional health. Upgrades often incur a decently active boon to your run, but are only available to that specific temple run, and do not carry over after completion. Traps include your typical spike pits, pressure plates, and the likes of spinning logs, rotating rooms, time trial platforming, and uniquely, a guardian that is constantly hunting you throughout the rooms, with increasing aggression the further you are in your temple run. To help you in your exploration is of course your ubiquitous temple running whip. This tool not only allows you to break objects and interact with traps, but also serves as a sort of grappling hook that works on all surfaces as long as it is in range and only works a set number of times each time you are airborne, typically once. This allows you a tool that can not only help you traverse, but also save you when you make a mistake, and even be used to create some clever shortcuts. All of this to help you complete your temple run, because if you fail due to death, you are immediately kicked out of the temple. No checkpoints, no retries. Complete the run, however, and you are rewarded with a shiny new relic to add to your in-hub collection, and more importantly, often you'll unlock a new whip that offers different effects that you can use towards your run. Soon after your first few runs, a classic mode is unlocked, granting you access to a much longer and progressively more difficult temple with more punishing conditions. These temples, in theory, are only completable by a single runner, after which it is closed off for everyone, giving you a sort of prestigious satisfaction to completing them. Similarities can be made to Mirror's Edge, albeit with more lethal traps to take into account, but is similar in challenging the players to observe their environment and plan their way through it, sometimes while actively on the move. If you're looking to really challenge your first-person KZ platforming chops in a challenging environment, or you want to stimulate your platform problem solving, then give Phantom Abyss a try. Third on the list, by developer 2 Point Interactive, is Heavenly Bodies. Heavenly Bodies is a cooperative physics-based scenario puzzler, and as such will require a second player, locally or through Parsec and its equivalents. Simulating the challenges of astronautic work, in Heavenly Bodies, you and a buddy will complete various space-based tasks while subjected to the lack of gravity. To do so, you'll be controlling your characters through the manipulation of their arms, along with the slight ability to tuck in your legs for fitting through tighter spaces. Pull yourself to where you need to be, manipulating tools and machinery to solve scenarios. Some missions even allow degrees of creative problem solving in order to complete, and though you'll typically be free to take your time working through the objectives with no fear of failure, you'll at times be asked to conduct an EVA and exit the station, leaving behind the safe confines of station walls, and become subject to the suitably tense danger of drifting off into space. Though not every challenge technically requires the cooperation of two players, because of the clever ways objectives are laid out, you'll want to try creative ways to complete them through teamwork. Or if all else fails, you could split up tasks between the players, assisting when needed. The objectives that do require two-player teamwork, however, are the absolute highlights, offering the satisfaction of clearing jobs, operating as a unit, working together, and often handling the well-being of each other to the other player. This in turn also promotes a bit of humorous anti-cooperation at times, generally without much danger of failing or causing too much harm to the game state. As Heavenly Bodies relies on physics to perform, the physics themselves are thankfully quite predictable and will generally not act in frustratingly unexpected ways. This makes the programming feel tight enough to feel that any issues that occur happens because of the player and not because of the game. I myself had one issue where a physics object wedged itself into a movable part of the station, causing it to bug out. But even then, it was more amusing than frustrating, and we were still able to solve the mission with some creative solutions. Heavenly Body's strengths is in its creative and constantly varied objectives, never asking the players to complete repetitively dull tasks, but instead throws different challenges to complete every mission. Even within those missions are some physics-based toys to play around with, separate to the objective, and some bonus completable objectives for the completionist that often asks you to completely explore the map in creative and more challenging ways. Similarities can be made with the many physics-based cooperative games that are available today. However, Heavenly Bodies gets my recommendation thanks to its tighter, predictable, and more clever use of zero-G physics-based scenarios. The often silliness in physics-based games stem not from the physics themselves, but from the player's creative use of it. Even better, the game allows different difficulty settings that affect different players individually, changing what level of weightlessness that the player will experience, and through that, how much they will need to rely on physics to perform. This means that those who want a more challenging experience can play with those who are looking for a more casual one without needing to agree on a difficulty setting. Heavenly Bodies is a shorter game, completable within a few hours depending on the abilities of the players involved. With that, I recommend this game for those who are looking for a tight, memorable, and enjoyable experience to complete with someone in one sitting. Moving on to the fourth recommendation, by developer Future Labs, is Powerwash Simulator. This one has had more exposure, but gets occasionally passed over for being a silly simulator game with silly Steam review ratings. Powerwash Simulator, however, is truly a great low mechanical density time dump of a game. The objective set out is simple: powerwash whatever the game asks you to until it's clean. Sometimes you'll need some smart positioning or usage of tools to clear your objective, but ultimately you'll simply be cleaning piece by piece, part by part, whatever service requires cleaning. Though mundane in nature, there is a satisfaction in your task due to being able to visibly observe your very obvious progress towards cleaning whatever it is being requested. This makes it a very cathartic experience, turning the mute grime of the dirty landscape into the often bright and shiny clean surfaces after you're done with it. As any good game with a focus on a mundane task, Powerwash tempts you with upgrades to your main tool, the Powerwasher, that you can purchase to make your work easier. Cleverly, while upgrading your gear makes your washing more efficient, the game also starts throwing larger, more extensive dirty jobs at you to keep you busy. You feel a sense of power progression, but also larger jobs to fulfill. The jobs themselves bring you to some varied environments that bring with them minor challenges to clean. As mentioned before, sometimes you'll need some clever positioning to get into an angle to completely clean a surface, and other times you'll need to use some environmental tools like ladders, scaffolding, or even some interactable objects. The power washer itself has different attachments that you can obtain, such as different nozzles and reach attachments that can change up the effective nature of the washer. These are just enough to give you a bit of variety to your challenge, but not enough to require too much critical thinking to solve, maintaining the relaxed experience. But what brings Powerwash Simulator to a next level of zen relaxation is in its smart quality of life design. Your character automatically steps up and over most minor ledges instead of getting caught by them. You're given a button that highlights remaining dirt on surfaces, useful for when you've cleaned up most of a surface but have missed some tighter spots. Surfaces will also automatically snap to 100% clean once you hit a certain point, stopping the need to look for a magical pixel of dirt on a large surface. Similarities can be made between Powerwash Simulator and the other mundane job simulators that have become the vogue today. The most obvious similarities to me would be made to Viscera Cleanup Detail and House Flipper. But while Viscera requires you to handle some physics-based shenanigans, and House Flipper asks you to put some thought design into your work, Powerwash Simulator strips it all down to the absolute basics. Use your power washer and clean the surfaces. No other thought is necessary. Powerwash Simulator is the perfect game to experience at the same time as you're consuming other content. Whenever you're watching your favorite video platform, on a Twitch stream, or listening to a podcast, Powerwash easily lets you experience both things at the same time without distracting your attention away. If you're looking for the perfect productive time waster while you're taking in other content, give Powerwash Simulator a try. It is absolutely not a joke of a game. And for my final recommendation by developer Vertigo Gaming, is Cook Serve Delicious 3. This is, quite honestly, the complete opposite of my previous recommendation. Cook Serve Delicious is, in a way, an absolute manic stress inducer of a game, and it thrives on it. Cook Serve Delicious casts you to manage a roaming food truck, and also to do the prep and cooking during service. Your primary work will be the latter two. As your cyborg companions drive your truck from stop to stop, you'll be tasked to pre-prepare your holding stations with whatever can be pre-cooked, and to pack pickup orders to go out when you arrive. Upon arrival, you'll serve whatever you have prepared on hand, and cook on the spot whatever you have not. This is where the panic will set in, as an absolute deluge of customers will immediately be set upon you, and you'll be effectively managing holding stations and each individual dish as they cook, sometimes requiring multiple steps to serve depending on the dish itself. The actual act of preparing and cooking is done through a series of actions displayed, generally through keyboard strokes or by directly clicking on the steps themselves. While some dishes can be as simple as dropping some nuggets into a fryer, other dishes may ask you to custom make the dish using and foregoing certain steps or ingredients, meaning you can't always autopilot your way through the steps. This becomes the core gameplay loop, preparing whatever you had beforehand while your truck travels towards the stop. Then you rely on your preparation to serve your initial rush of customers. Once you have exhausted that, scramble and prepare to cook for the remaining hungry patrons before they leave unhappy. The key is a harmony of time management, precision, and planning. You have to properly manage your time, as food in the holding station are only good for a certain amount of time, while food presently being cooked can also end up being overcooked if you're not paying attention. Precision is required to correctly prepare dishes that sometimes require you to prep it differently. And planning needs to be done constantly, as you'll have to handle all of this concurrently through constantly ticking timers. All this cultivates to a constant feeling of satisfaction after every service stop, throwing waves of challenges at you that you can perfectly execute as long as you've worked through the proper steps. Upgrades are available to help you work through them, and the levels themselves will scale the challenges appropriately. Packaging the gameplay is a gleefully delicious aesthetic package with unique cooking and prepping animations for every one of the hundreds of available foods, completing into its tasty looking finished product. All the foods have their own vaguely authentic history tidbit available for you to read in the menu selections, and the foods themselves span all sorts of global cuisine, inviting you to discover new dishes for yourself. Tying this all up are some great optional additions made to the game. built with a lot of accessibility options available, allowing it to be enjoyed by a wider audience. Additionally, a cooperative option is available, allowing you to split tasks between mouse and keyboard, while also splitting workstation screens to allow players to work concurrently on dishes. This all means that the game serves towards an exceptionally wide variety of audiences. Though you could easily compare Cook Serve Delicious 3 to many similar time management games, this game, as the third iteration of its series, has allowed it to become finely tuned and produced as it's ever been. All the additional fluff has been cut from the experience, and the core enjoyable loop has been polished to an absolute peak. Give Cook Serve Delicious 3 a try if you're looking for an exciting, versatile time management game packed with delicious aesthetic design, or try it as a foodie experience to give you some exposure on the vast food cultures available at your own tweakable pace. If you love food, whenever eating or making it, give this one a go. And that is the end of the video. Thanks for watching Second Opinion, where we try to give a second chance to those games that we may have passed over in the past. If that sounds interesting to you, why not hit the subscribe button down there to get notified when new videos pop up. Let me know down in the comments whether you like the video or not, maybe hit me up with some new ideas. If you want to see these games in action, why not join us on Twitch at twitch.tv/secondop, that's secondop with the number 2. And most importantly, enjoy more games. See you on the next one.